This is how I face paint my skulls, and it's a pretty popular request year round, but coming up to Halloween, I will be getting asked for this a lot. So this is how I do it. Let's get into it. First things first, here's what you'll need, and everything I use in this video is linked in the description. A black and white one stroke like this, any good quality opaque black and white face paint, and I'm also going to use another white from Snazzaroo because it's less opaque and easier to blend into the base. A 3/4 inch flat brush, and this one is from the Verona range by the Face Painting Hub. A smaller round brush for outlines and details, and this one is by Rosemary & Co. It's one of my absolute favourite brushes ever. You will also want a petal brush like this, which has a kind of bullet-shaped tip, which works perfectly to create petals or, coincidentally for our purposes, teeth. And the last thing you'll need is a sponge. Any face painter's sponge will do, just make sure you're using the round edge so that you can blend in that white base nice and evenly. So just to recap, now we have a flat brush, a details brush, a petal brush, a black and white one stroke, solid black and white paint, a white paint for the base, and a sponge. First up, I'm going to use the flat brush and that black and white one stroke to create the outline. I paint a big round curve from the centre of the forehead around the eye socket and then in and down towards the lips. Remember, you can always go back over your one stroke work if it isn't opaque or vibrant enough on the first go. I'm now loading up my sponge with that Snazzaroo white to essentially colour in the middle. It's important to note that you'll probably really struggle to get very close to the under eye on small children. It's just too ticklish and sensitive, and they're going to scrunch up their eyes, leaving a big gap. So to overcome that, I just try and blend the white out towards that area instead of trying to get my sponge right up against the waterline. Next, I'm going to create the eye socket. I tend to paint my skull's eye sockets over the eye only and not under it because of the problems I mentioned before with wiggling, twitching and scrunching. It just makes it too hard to get close enough to the eye and it doesn't look very elegant. But you absolutely can if you're painting someone very cooperative. Painting any design very close to the eye is always going to cause problems because it's such sensitive skin, so I'll either colour the eye socket in with a brush, or if I'm painting someone that's finding it particularly difficult to stay still, I'll use a finger sponge like this just to colour in the rest of that eye socket, which is a little bit more time consuming because you've then got to go and load a new product instead of just carrying on using the brush, but it can be a little bit less tickly and therefore easier for you if you're trying to paint a moving target. Now for the skull's nose, which can essentially be a pointy U shape like this. Is it a nose hole? Space word nose was? I don't know. Anyway, bigger one will be scarier, smaller one will be cute. So just paint appropriately. Now let's paint the skull's mouth, and I love this part. It's a really cool trick, but it won't really look like a skull's mouth until the end, so just bear with me here. First, I'm going to create these lines that will actually look like the gaps between the teeth. So I'll start right in the middle under the nose, and then carry on those flicky lines emanating from the mouth, both on the top and the bottom of the lips. You can carry on this technique up the side of the jaw here, and that does give the skull a bit of a scarier look. So I do it sometimes, it just depends on who I'm painting and if we're going for a more scary or friendly skull. Now it's time for details, and I like to do some little fractures or cracks around the skull just to make it a bit more interesting. I paint with my heart a bit here, it just depends on the face I'm painting and where they fit around the design, but the trick with these is to make sure that they are jaggedy, angled and pointed rather than curvy or swirly, because that's what will really help make them look like cracks. Now this bit is so fun and it always impresses people when I do it. I take my petal brush, load it up really thoroughly with that opaque white paint and press it down gently in between those lines around the mouth, and you can see that the shape of the petal brush also really perfectly creates the shape of teeth. And you can always add a bit of yellow to that petal brush if you're feeling fancy and want to make the teeth look even more realistic. So that's the basis of my skull design, and if I'm speed painting I will quite happily leave it here, but there's another detail that I love adding, especially around Halloween, and that is a really bright green or yellow paint just as an accent around the design. I think it's fun, it looks like toxic waste or ectoplasm, I don't really know, but the kids go mad for it and I think it just makes it a bit more fun and interesting. So that's my skull face paint. I really hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions at all, leave them in the comments below, but before before you go, if you'd like more help with your Halloween face painting, I'm going to be hosting a free exclusive Halloween face paint workshop at the beginning of October. The link is in the description and in my bio. It'll be on Zoom and hopefully at a time that is okay for UK people and US people. So I'm going to try and make it work for everybody. But I hope to see you there. We will talk about everything face painting and I'm going to recommend products, tips, designs, talk about my Halloween design menu. It's going to be awesome. So sign up, I'll see you there. And in the meantime, happy haunting.